want. But again, I'm already a few months invested into this beer, so it's better to wait. So here's what you're looking for. I don't know if this is going to come out very well, but this beer is like crystal clear. When you look inside of it, you can see straight down to the yeast on the bottom. And depending on the style of beer, some of them won't clear up quite this well, but after lagering for a while, and if you're doing an ale, it'll still get nice and clear, but maybe not this clear. But what you don't want to see is anything going on in the airlock. I mean, if you still got bubbles rolling and tumbling, it's not ready. And kind of the biggest thing about beer is having the patience to wait for it to be done. But if you're seeing little teeny tiny stuff, just like a little particulate, rising here or there, don't worry about it. Especially in this case too, I'm going to let this probably bottle condition for a month or two before we open it up. So it'll be plenty metabolized by the time we're drinking it. And if anybody's wondering, this is a Budvar clone, and Budvar is supposed to be the finest Pilsner in the world. And the idea was, when Anheuser created Budweiser, they did it so Budvar wouldn't be able to be imported into the Americas because of the similarity in name. So they pretty much were successful in making sure that they wouldn't have to compete with the best beer in the world. So, way to go. But anyway, so we're making it here so we can actually try it. So while this is settling down, we just want this yeast bed to be nice and solid. I mean, when you move something from floor to floor, it can kind of get disturbed, and you don't want to get that stuff in your final product. So I got my bottling bucket here, and what we're going to do is just toss in some iodophor, fill it up with water, let it sanitize. We're going to start soaking our bottles in the sink, and basically the idea is what I'm going to do, I like to just go ahead, just kind of get one of my scrubby guys here with the soap and actually just wash out my stainless sinks, just in case there's anything stuck to it at all, any little chunks of coffee grounds or whatever I might have around. Rinse that out, fill these up with the iodophor water that I use for my bottling bucket, soak my bottles in here, and then get them all set up to actually fill with their final product. So we're going to go ahead, get the iodophor rolling, and we'll come back after we start getting ready to fill the bottles. Just so you guys are thinking of it, because I mean, it's easy to slip your mind, stuff like that. Everything should be going into the iodophor, and more specifically, every part of everything should be going into the iodophor. So if you were just to take this racking cane and stick it in there, because of displacement and all that, this thing isn't going to completely fill up with the iodophor. So, maybe even the majority of this stuff isn't actually going to be getting sanitized. So when it goes in, make sure that you go ahead and run everything through and just make sure that everything's getting soaked inside and out. Just wanted to point that out in case, it just didn't cross your mind or whatever, and that's totally understandable. So now that this is nice and sanitary, it's just sat here for a while, we got our sinks plugged up, and again, reduce, reuse, recycle, however you want to think of it. We're going to go ahead and just use the same sanitizer that we use for our bottling bucket for the bottles themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and fill the sinks. Okay. Looks like we got like a little thick iodophor on the bottom of this still, so I'm just going to go ahead and take that out. If you see any kind of crumblies or anything like that, just go ahead and dab them. Every once in a while you end up with like a little, I don't know, fuzzball of some kind or other. But anything that goes into this bucket is going into your final product, the beer. So if you see it, you should probably grab it with your hand and set it with your mouth later. Okay, so we got that under control. Now, before you start draining your beer into your bottling bucket, it's a good idea to put in your priming sugar first, I think. Now, here's the deal. Yeast needs oxygen to thrive, but at this point, if you're introducing oxygen, you're risking oxidation. Now, we talked about this in the all grain video, but oxidation is literally the formation of, well, iron oxide or rust. I mean, your beer, that kind of bloody metallic taste you get in some beers, that's oxidation. You might have, I think MGD all the time from Miller kind of tastes oxidized. I don't know if that's the size of their tanks or that's a whole other can of worms, but the idea is you want to minimize the amount of oxygen going into the beer at this point. So we're going to go ahead and pop the top off of this, set that aside, and we're going to pop open our corn sugar here. And again, this recipe specifically calls for 3/4 of a cup of corn sugar. Now, other recipes suggest that you use a specific kind of dry malt extract, or maybe even something strange like cane sugar or brown sugar. I mean, you can really use any sugar source at all, but whatever the recipe says you should use, that's specifically what you should use if you want to actually recreate whatever it is you're trying to make. If you're making your own beer from scratch, totally up to you, whatever you prefer. I like the corn sugar a lot. Again, it's pretty much flavorless and works great. So I have a 1/4 cup measuring cup here, so we're going to go ahead and add 3 of those, of course, to get 3/4 of a cup. And we're just tossing those right under the bottom. Now again, the reason I like adding it first is so that as we're pouring the beer on the top, it kind of mixes itself, and you minimize the need to actually fold in the priming sugar, and you minimize your chances of oxidation that way. So, okay, here's our 3/4 cup. Priming sugar, done. Don't forget that, by the way. If you skip the priming sugar here, you're going to be waiting an awfully long time for that beer to get bubbly. So, okay, so we're done with that. Now we're going to grab our racking cane, drain out the iodophor from it, and again, I just like to leave it as long as you can. You know, just really minimize any chances for infection. And again, I've never actually had an infected beer, but you know, it's probably because I don't like taking chances. So, okay. Now, this is going to be a little difficult. They usually have somebody hold this, but the idea is you're just going to go ahead. Yeah, my life sucks right now. 1, 2, 3, ha! Get this thing started. Get this thing started. There we go. And bring the camera over here. We're going to go ahead and just kind of direct this over the top of that corn sugar and get it all melted and mixed in with the beer. And you can see how clear this is running, especially when it's in the tube passing through like this. This is a really good time to really take a look at how clear the beer came out, or dark, or whatever style it is. But I'm really pretty happy with this, and it sure smells like beer. So I think we're in pretty good shape here. This is a nice lagered Pilsner. So basically this is going to take, you know, quite a while, and I keep promising myself I'm going to have a larger diameter tube so this goes a little quicker. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and run this. We're going to start soaking our bottles, get those all ready, and we'll come back to show you how to bottle. So here's kind of what you want to see. I like to just take my bottling bucket full of the beer with priming sugar in it. Don't forget the priming sugar. Set it up over my sink. I got a whole bunch of sanitized bottles. I don't know how it could be misinterpreted, but stranger things have happened. We're talking about soaking bottles. We're talking about soaking bottles. I mean, you're literally just soaking them in iodophor. Once they've sat for 2 minutes, you can dump the iodophor back out, and they're ready to go. I like to drain one sink, fill those with bottles, and then set them off to the counter. And I like to leave one full just in case you end up needing a few more. In this case, we ended up with exactly 5.5 gallons of beer. You know, I make these half-gallon yeast starters. Sometimes I use the whole thing, sometimes I don't. Good rule of thumb: if you're doing pint bottles, which is what these Grolsch bottles are, 40 of them is exactly 5 gallons, or it's 52 standard 12 fluid ounce US bottles. And you'll get more familiar with those numbers. And the way it works out, I mean, sometimes you'll end up losing a little bit of beer off the bottom, like you see here. You got this yeast in the bottom. This kind of swirly, you know, whatever. I mean, who knows exactly how many ounces that is. So as far as the bottle thing goes, it's not exactly a perfect science in a kitchen. So always be prepared to need to be able to clean more bottles. So I'll just leave a sink full of iodophor. And then also too, your caps need to be sanitized. So I'll just literally toss like a handful in there. Whatever you use, great. If you got too many, then what you're actually going to end up using, just stick them back in your bag and use them another time. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. What I wanted to show you is my little ninja trick here. As far as getting the bottle filler attached to the end of your racking cane goes, you got this vinyl tubing, and especially with this kind of cold water, it's contracted, and this isn't going to want to come together. So what I'll do is just get a ceramic, you know, mug, throw some water in it, and I'll microwave this for, you know, a minute and a half, whatever, minute even.